Welcome back to Auto's Garage. So in this video, we're gonna update the suspension, walk through how I'm gonna set up a torque brace for the engine or torque strap, and install the engine. So should be a fun project. So one thing I wanted to get done, really set up before I get the engine installed, now that I have some space, is I want to get a torque strap for the engine. I'm using potentially a sway bar link I got off Amazon for a few bucks. So I'm gonna use 1/2. I'm going to do a plate right here, mount it here, then I'm going to weld on the other side of a bolt to connect to the heim joint that I have on the engine block. So this is going to be my torque strap, which is going to be insulated with some rubber bushings. So what I have here is my CAD, which is cardboard aided design. So I went ahead and mocked up what my brace is going to be like. So essentially going to mount up something like that. Here's the sides. So I already test fitted and mocked it up with cardboard. Using the cardboard as my template. It should work out pretty good. So for the bushing on the torque strap, I went ahead and used a step bit and gave it a bit of an hourglass. I'm not sure how good it's going to come out on video, but there's essentially 2 steps, a bit wider, and then the inner step, and then the opposite side, the outer step. There's a bit of an hourglass shape on the bushing lip, so I want to kind of get the outer edge to kind of get on the flat surface of the bushing, and then the inner diameter to go into the inner diameter of the plate. So my plan is to use header wrap on the headers, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and give it a coat of paint for some level of protection. So these are raw headers. So my process was to clean it with brake cleaner, some acetone, and then ultimately hit it with the blowtorch to burn off any oils. And then once that's done, I went ahead and laid a coat of header black paint. So I'm gonna let this cure for a day, then hit it with the blowtorch again to get it to cure and harden. So you can do this on car or in the oven, but since I'm gonna be breaking in the engine, I don't want the engine idling for too long to break in the header paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and bake it with the torch for a bit prior to installation. Alright, so one of the projects I wanted to do before dropping in the engine was replace the strut link. From my understanding, the proper procedure is essentially pop off the ball joint and lower the lower control arm, and then the screw to access it is right here. So essentially take off the screw, lower it to the point where you can slip it off, and then pull the whole strut bar assembly off. But a hack I've seen is essentially just cut it off, and then you can slip this side in, this side out. And then the aftermarket QA1 for the heim joint, I already went ahead and popped off the Loctite on the screw, so it's still a little hot. But essentially mount this onto the K member, mount this part into the lower control arm, and then hopefully I can just slip it in and screw it in place. So that prevents me from having to pop off the ball joint and essentially take apart the whole assembly just to remove the strut bar. So, alright, see how it goes. Looks pretty straightforward. Cut it off, slips right out. I didn't notice some of the threads were a little galled, so maybe this is one of the root causes of why there were some kind of clicking noises during braking. Alright, now time for the install. Alright, able to get it installed. So the trick is not to take this apart, but instead feed this into the little cup or cavity and then slide it into the lower control arm. And then kind of afterwards you kind of pop it back in and get it to the correct size. But yeah, that was the trick. It's been quite a while trying to get this hem joint slipped back in, and even though I could get it to fit, there's really no way to get the bolt back in when it's inside that cavity. So yep, that's the trick to installing these, is you just slip it into the cavity, put it back, and kind of pull it into the lower control arm. So I went ahead and torqued down the flex plate, used the blue Loctite on the threads, and then the ARP grease behind the head bolt. To do this while on the stand, I'd have my wife hold essentially the crank bolt while I went ahead and torque down the flex plate. So torque down to 75 foot-pounds and ready to rock. So one thing I like to do on critical bolts like this is actually mark it with a Sharpie. That way it'll help troubleshooting if you ever start having some rattling or knocking noises. You can easily look in, identify whether any of the bolts have backed out. So I struggled a bit getting the torque converter in, but finally got it snapped in and ready to mount the transmission to the engine. Originally thought we can just press it and essentially lift the transmission into the engine, but nope, it wasn't as easy. So went ahead and just used a transmission jack to mount everything up. No sense breaking our backs getting it mounted when we had the tools available to make it easier on ourselves. So. Alright, so during installation, a little test fitting, but we're trying to figure out whether the filter will actually clear the torsion bar. So we're about to do a little test removal. Otherwise, I do have a filter relocation bracket that I was going to do in the future. So I might have to do that sooner than later. Alright, moment of truth. Oh yeah, filter clears, just barely. Alright, probably should have read the instructions for the header first. So now we're getting the idler arm removed to actually fit the headers. So after about an hour of haggling, we finally got the headers in. So it took longer to get the headers in to get the engine in. So now to fully torque down a little bit of anti-seize and torque down the headers. Alright, so I got the engine installed, ready to go. And we got the grill going for a celebration. So good, successful day. Thanks to some great friends. We had to adjust the hood 20 times to get it aligned properly, so I feel sorry for the factory workers who had to knock this out on a daily basis. So here's the torque brace. Went ahead and welded it up, mounted it for a test fit. Heim joint connected to the engine. So after grinding up everything and giving it a fresh coat of paint, came out pretty good. All right, well, thanks for watching.